What country are you? Wait, what country are you from?
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major...
Jeez. That fast? How long did it take her to go into the racism? How fast did it take her to go back to your country? Even though I know she white. She white. I get it, she white. But at the same time, go back to your country. It's like embedded in their brain.
Major migrant problem. Okay, and you, no, you should...
Then she went to the migrant instantly. Like in the snap, instead of just saying, I'm not answering your question or answering the question, she could have easily just said that. She's gonna go through all the talking points. She already did the go back to your country. She already did the migrants. And then she's going to blame for the crime and all kind of crimes that they swear the immigrants are doing here when it's really our own people. Then they always deflect and go to Biden somehow. I don't know why, but somehow you can't go or talk to MAGA without them saying, well, Biden. What about this person? What about that person on the Democratic side? You can't do it.
Care about your own borders?
Do you care about American lives?
No. Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you
Called
care
it.
about
No, do you care?
Called it.
You're done.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
You know what? I don't care.
Service members fighting for your country.
I don't care about
and
your
vice
fake news.
president
Do you have a
and your
relevant
defense
question?
secretary?
Yeah,
Fake
this is an
news.
American journalist. Thank you.
I'm an American.
Typical.
I'd like to hear your answer to what she's asking.
I'm not answering her question because I don't care about her network. If you would like to ask, I can answer.
So embarrassing.
Whatsoever about the complete disregard of operational security from the top level of this administration.
You want to know about complete disregard about operational security? You should talk about the Biden administration.
Biden. That Joe Biden. I called it. That Joe Biden. Come on, man. We fucking suck as a country right now, man.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
How are you going to do that?
We expect that these tariffs will result in over $100 billion of new annual revenue to the United States of America in tariff revenue.
I think ultimately we could probably anywhere from $600 billion to $1 trillion will be taken in over the relatively short-term period, meaning a year from now.
Can I ask you about tariffs, Mr. President? On the car tariffs, how do you assure that the car coming into the country is fully built? Could an automaker in Germany say, leave the tires off a car?
We're going to have very strong policing, and it's pretty easy to do.
No, it's not.
If
Gaslight
parts are
101.
made in America and a car isn't, those parts are not going to be taxed or tariffed. And we'll have very strong policing as far as that's concerned. But this is very exciting to me. This is the automobile industry, and this will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants that were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places. Now those plants largely have stopped, and they're moving them to our country.
Are there any conditions under which you'd remove these auto tariffs?
I'm going to wait.
Permanent for the rest of your term in office?
Oh, this is permanent, yeah, 100%, yeah.
Story time. It's the 90s. We get into a trade agreement with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. All three get into a trade agreement called NAFTA, right? Within that trade agreement, we moved automakers from the U.S., the process and manufacture for automakers from the U.S. to Mexico. At the time, the U.S. was struggling, like majorly struggling to compete with European and Asian automakers. So in this trade agreement, because it's cheaper labor, the parts cost a lot less over Mexico. The production cost a lot less over Mexico. We started a trade agreement. All right, keep up with me. Fast forward, 2018, it gets better. Trump's in office. He replaces the trade agreement with a trade agreement called USMCA. That trade agreement, he could have stopped the manufacturing of cars in Mexico right then and there. But he not only did not stop that manufacturing, this man actually made it cheaper. He lowered tariffs on Mexico, specifically importing in and out of borders from U.S. and the U.S., from U.S. and Mexico when it came to auto manufacturing. So this whole notion that we've been getting robbed or we've been getting outperformed by any other country when automakers, especially coming in and out of Mexico, is done by him. The current trade agreement that we have right now is done by this man. But let him tell it. America, he's going to make America great again. It's just like he knows what the people want to hear to make them go, look at what he's doing for us. When he made the mess in the first place, other countries has responded. Let's take a look at it.
Lana and I were just having a meeting, a pre-scheduled meeting, to discuss the situation in our economy, how we can work together across a range of industries, forestry, aerospace, automobiles, and beyond. During the course of that meeting, President Trump announced 25% tariffs against our auto industry. And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, unifor workers I stood in front of this morning at the Ambassador Bridge, a bridge that is a symbol and a reality up until now of the tight ties between our two countries, ties of kinship, ties of commerce, ties that are in the process of being broken. It would be appropriate that the President and I speak, given the action that he's taken. I'm sure that it will happen soon. I'm not going to give you a precise timing on that.
So basically, Trump did this without even speaking to anyone, right? Because he's in a deal right now that he signed and he knows it. So if he was to come out and say, I want to speak to these countries, he would have to also say, we have to change the current deal that we're in, which would make him have to admit that he signed the deal that we're currently in the first place. But instead, he wants to be a bully and try to force his way into a new trade deal where you could just simply sit down with him. But why would they go into a new trade deal when it's working out for them? And if it was so bad for us, why would you sign it during your first term? And that's my confusion, because you're going to come in the comments and go, well, he wants manufacturing jobs back here in the U.S. Okay, let's say he does that. But if you can't afford the cars, what's the point of bringing it back here in the first place? Because you got to pay a livable wage to these people. If you cannot afford a vehicle, I don't know if you can afford a brand new vehicle, 100% U.S. made from 100% U.S. labor. You know how much that vehicle is going to cost you? Excuse me. Last time I checked, the average American can't afford a brand new car. And I'm talking about cheap cars. I'm talking about cars made in China. So this is not necessarily the right move. Again, I've said it time and time again. Tariffs can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing, depending on how you use it. A blanket tariff on anything is bad because you start a trade war. We have resources from other countries that we need, just like other countries have resources that we need.
Our nation's scrambling as U.S. President Donald Trump announced his plans for his long-promised tariffs on automotive imports. Japan warning of a significant impact on global trade, calling the move extremely regrettable. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba says his country is putting all options on the table and reviewing an appropriate response.
アメリカに対する投資も屈指のというか1位の投資をしておると。そうだとすれば本当に全部の国同じでいいのかということはきちんと申し上げておかねばなりませんし、今までも申し上げてきたところでございます。
South Korea's auto sector also bracing for significant difficulties when these tariffs take effect. Seoul will be announcing its emergency response as well as actively engaging with Washington to explore measures on how they might minimize negative impacts on South Korean companies and suppliers. China also disagreeing with the planned U.S. tariffs on imported vehicles.
Hey, now this is one country you got to tariff from. I know, I'm sorry, I got to be real with y'all. This is one country you have to tariff on vehicles. Their vehicles are so cheap that if you do not tariff their vehicles, they would ship them over here and they would sell them for dirt cheap, and we would put the U.S. automakers out of business. We would end up bailing automakers here in the U.S. out again. That's how cheap cars are over there in China. Now, the bigger question is, why can't we get that same luxury over here in the U.S.? We're supposed to be the best country in the world. But trust me, you want to put tariffs on China. No doubt about that.
calling it a violation of the World Trade Organization's rules. Many EU members, including Germany and Hungary, urging the bloc to talk to Washington about these latest tariffs on car imports. Of France criticizing the US for being uncooperative and that the EU could have little choice but to retaliate. Shares in Europe.
And part of that retaliation is going to be them working with Canada, which they've already been in talks. It won't necessarily have to be tariffs. It's going to end up being Canada and the EU working together to separate themselves from the US when it comes from a DoD and defense standpoint. Canada wants to separate themselves and have less dependency on the US from a military standpoint, and they're going to do it through the EU. Mark my words, I give it less than 2 years. Less than 2 years. And I'll still be here. If Lord willing, if I'm alive, I'll still be here. And I'll come right back here, bookmark this video, and show you the clip and play you and say, I told you so. So we're going to see how this plays out. MAGA, you might think it's the right move. Me personally, I say this is the wrong move. This is not the time. The economy is already bad enough for you to put tariffs just for the long haul when people can barely afford to eat. This is not the time to mess up the stock market, to continue to let groceries rise and raise up every day, but yet focus on cars when no one can afford cars in the first place. All right, if you're still here, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you next video.